Hello friends and welcome to lesson 19. My name is Ms. Butiman and today we will be creating and solving multi-step word problems. Let's begin. We don't have a word problem to read. What we do have is this tape diagram here. Let's take a moment to analyze it, and as we do, I'd like you to ask me the following question. What information do I know based on this diagram? We know there's one tape diagram and its total value is 7,104. This therefore represents the whole. We can also see that the tape diagram is partitioned into three parts. There are two known parts, 4,295, and then the other known part is 902. What are we trying to solve? We are trying to solve for the third part, which is labeled with the variable a. Now, in thinking about this tape diagram and coming up with a word problem to go alongside it, we can ask this question. What story makes sense with the diagram? I'm going to start with the whole, 7,104. Depending on what you're thinking about, it can be a relatively large number. The first thing that comes to mind for me is 7,104 people at a football game. I'm going to use this as my first sentence for the word problem I will create to roll alongside this tape diagram. Great. The next thing is to think about the two known parts. Well, at football games, people like to purchase food. So I'm imagining that 4,295 people purchased hot dogs. And I'm also thinking that maybe 982 purchased fries. For our unknown variable a, I'm thinking that they purchased nachos. We've now labeled our tape diagram with the parts, so now I'm going to include that sentence in the word problem here. Here's my second sentence. 4,295 people purchased a hot dog. 982 people purchased fries. The rest purchased nachos. Now, the question. What question will I ask in my word problem? I can ask, how many people purchased nachos? Look at that. We've come up with a word problem to go alongside our tape diagram. Now, we get to actually solve this word problem. I'd like you to pause the video here to solve for A. We'll compare when you get back. Take a moment to compare your work with mine. What is the value of A? A equals 1,827. So now we need to come up with a statement that answers the question. How about 1,827 people purchased nachos? Let's write that statement in now. Great work. Let's move to the next tape diagram to analyze. Here is our second tape diagram. Take a moment now to analyze it, and as you do, ask the following question. What information do I know based on this diagram? We can see that the first tape equals 215,554. We can also see that the second one is 90,457 more than the first one. Next question. What are we trying to solve? We are trying to solve the value of both tapes. This is indicated with the variable m. Next, I'd like you to pause the video here. And when you do, I'd like you to come up with a story that makes sense with this diagram. We'll compare stories when you get back. What story did you come up with? I was thinking that we might see numbers like this in the real world when looking at housing costs. So for this first one, this could be the value of house A. The second tape indicates the cost of house B, and what we're trying to figure out is the value of both houses. So let's write this as a word problem. The first sentence could be, house A costs $215,554. Let's write this in. This tape illustrates the cost of house B. What sentence can we add to our word problem to tell us about the value of house B? I was thinking that we could write, house B is $90,457 more than house A. Let's write that in. The next question is, what question will I ask in my word problem? On your own, I'd like to go ahead and pause the video here to come up with a question to add to our word problem. We'll compare our questions when you get back. What question did you come up with? I came up with the following. How much do both houses cost altogether? I think you know what we're going to do next. We're going to pause the video here again, and this time I'd like you to actually solve for the variable m. And then of course I'll be here when you get back so we can compare our work. How much do both houses cost altogether? Both houses cost $521,565. Great work. Here is tape diagram number 3. How is this one different from the previous two that we analyzed? We can see that this tape diagram consists of 3 different tapes. Here's what I'd like you to do. You're going to pause the video, and when you do, I'd like you to ask the first 2 questions. While analyzing, first ask, what information do I know based on this diagram? The second question I'd like you to ask is, what are we trying to solve? We'll compare our thinking when you get back. Let's see if we were able to glean the same information from looking at the diagram. We can see that the first tape has a value of 8,200. We see that the second tape is 3,500 less than the first one. And we can also see that the third tape is 2,010 more than the first tape. And what is it that we're trying to solve? We're trying to determine the value of all three tapes, which is indicated here with a question mark. Here's what I'd like you to do next. We're going to pause the video here, and I want you to come up with a story that makes sense with this diagram. Then, you're going to think about what question will I ask in my word problem. So you're going to think about these two. Then I'd like you to actually write out your word problem that goes with tape diagram 3. We'll compare our word problems afterwards. How did you do? I'm sure you did great. Here's the word problem that I came up with. Go ahead and take a moment to read through it now. Here's what I'd like you to do next. I'd like you to pause the video and now solve your word problem. We'll compare our answers when you get back. My final statement is the following. All three whales weigh 23,110 kilograms. Great. Let's move to the fourth and final problem. For our fourth and final problem, you'll see that there is no tape diagram. Instead, we have this equation. 26,854 equals 17,729 plus 3,731 plus A. Here's what I'd like you to do. You're first going to draw a tape diagram that represents this equation. You're then going to create a word problem to go alongside that tape diagram. As you do so, I want you to keep in mind the 4 questions that we've been using to help guide our thinking when creating that word problem. Again, those questions are, what information do I know based on this diagram? What are we trying to solve? What story makes sense with the diagram? And finally, what question will I ask in my word problem? We'll compare our tape diagrams and our word problems when you get back. Go ahead and take a moment to compare your tape diagram with mine. And then here is my word problem that I created. I really wish I could read yours. The next thing that I'd like you to do is solve the word problem that you just created. Make sure to include a statement, and then of course, we'll compare our solutions after. Here's the statement that I have. 5,394 people prefer apple juice in the morning. Great job creating those word problems and then also solving them. Today, we created and solved multi-step word problems. Excellent work today. Be sure to check in with your teacher, and we'll see you here for another Eureka math lesson. See you soon.